In 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 9 and 10 it says, "We know in part and prophesy in part, but when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears." Now, what does Paul mean by these remain? These are focal points of our Christian life today. They are vital in our current Christian life, but two of them are temporary and one of them is eternal. Our faith is temporary because faith has to do with things we don't see. As Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1 tells us, one day our faith will be visible and we won't need it anymore. What about our hope? Is that temporary? Yes, Romans 8 tells us, who hopes for what he already has? We won't have hope when we're in heaven, but the concreteness of it. Faith and hope are vital, but they are temporary. But love, that is eternal because in heaven we will be perfectly fulfilling every moment of our existence. The two great commandments, "You shall finally love God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength," will take place fully in eternity. The cause and source of agape is in heaven, which is why it is eternal. The God of love himself personally dwells in heaven. The new heavens, the new earth and the new Jerusalem will shine and radiate completely with the light that comes from God's glory. Heaven has everything to do with God's glory and what God's glory is, but with the radiant manifestation of God's perfections or attributes. His mercy, His power, His love, His compassion, His justice, His wrath, His patience, these are the attributes of God. Heaven radiates God's glory. Heaven is a world of love because God is love and God dwells there personally. In the Old Testament, God was, in this sense, more in the nation of Israel than in other nations. And God was more in Jerusalem than in any other city in Israel, and God was more in the temple than in any other building in Jerusalem. And God was more in the Holy of Holies than in any other part of the temple. And God was more located in this way of speaking on the mercy seat above the arch than in any other part of the Holy of Holies. God will be more in heaven than any experience we've ever had before. He will dwell with us in our midst with His glory open, and we will see Him, as the text says, face to face, exactly what Moses could never experience. "No one can see me and live," God told Moses, but this text says that we will see God face to face and live. It wasn't out of emptiness or need that God created the universe, or out of loneliness. There was a perfect and warm communion and relationship within the Trinity even before God said, "Let there be light." The persons of the Trinity are infinitely dear and precious to each other. There is an incomprehensible love, flowing and reflowing between the Father and the Son and the Son and the Father, between the Son and the Spirit and the Spirit and the Son, and between the Father and the Spirit and the Spirit and the Father. Thus the Father loves the Son with a perfect love. However, the Lord also loved the world and gave His only begotten Son so that whoever believes in Him will not perish but have everlasting life. So God also loves the world, but He loves His Son with a perfect love. And the Son, Jesus Christ, loves His Father perfectly. He loved Him so much that He obeyed Him in everything the Father told Him to do. Jesus said, "I always do what pleases you." Jesus is perfect in love, and the Holy Spirit is the one who has personally poured out Christ's love into our hearts, into all Christians. The Holy Spirit, the third person of the Trinity, is the delivery system of Jesus' love to us. We wouldn't be Christians if it weren't for the work of the Spirit. It is through the Spirit that God's love is poured into our hearts. Romans chapter 5 verse 5. He is the Spirit of love. This triune God is the center of heaven, so heaven must be a world of love because God is a God of love, and we will have perfect communion with this God of love. In heaven our communion with God will be perfect, face to face, without any blockage, obstacle or distance. We will drink of God's love and swim in it for all eternity. However, in order for us to have eternity with Christ, we need to have Him in the present, in every step we take in our lives, in trust and in response to His love. Heaven will be a world of love, an infinite expression and experience of love because God is there. So let's not forget that there will be a there and an after, which begins in the here and now. Lord, may each day we have a greater and better knowledge of who You really are. God bless.